an unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
I had to do this one. I have always told my kids that they are not obligated to be blindly respectful to adults. If an adult is being rude and disrespectful to them, they are allowed to stand up for themselves. They are allowed to talk back, and they are allowed to tell them that it's not okay. They are allowed to argue with an adult if they are right and the adult is wrong.
What's an unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
A lot of parents are always like, I'm not one of your little friends. But I'd like to argue that I think more parents should view their children as one of their friends, and here is why. I think more parents need to view their children as actual individuals rather than just an extension of themselves. And if you have to see that child as a friend in order to do that, then so be it. Because with friendship, if you're a good friend, you understand boundaries, you make space for effective communication, and when your friends mess up, you don't yell at them or beat them the way you would do a child. So yeah, maybe you need to look at that child as your friend. Telling your child, I'm not one of your little friends, is also just a weird way of asserting dominance. There's nothing wrong with being a parent and a friend to your child. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
What's an unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
Oh, I've got a lot of these, but here are my top 3. Number 1, my kid will be allowed to swear. I do not care how old he is, and I do not care if it upsets you or your children. He is more than likely going to grow up to be an adult who swears, so we might as well let him practice while he can. My wife and I actually have a bet on whether his first words are going to be fuck or I love you, because those are the 2 most popular words in our household. Number 2, we know anatomy in this household, which means that penis and vagina are actual words. Again, I do not care if that makes you or your children uncomfortable, but those are the words that we're going to be using in this household. No slang terms, no coochie, no ding-a-ling, no kitty kitty meow meow, anything like that. Penis and vagina. That's how it works. That's what they are. No shame in it. And number 3, toys do not have genders. If he wants to play with it, then he's going to be able to play with it. For example, we have a pink chair that we bought him at a garage sale. Why? Because it was cheaper than the blue one, and it really does not matter. So yes, my son has a pink chair that he plays with, and he absolutely loves it.
What's an unpopular opinion you have about parenting that might make people
when your children
mad?
turn into adults, they have the right to decide that they don't want to be a part of your life anymore. They do not owe you a relationship. But as a parent, you do not get to decide that you don't want to be a part of your child's life. Let me explain. You made that child. You and your partner made a decision to create that child. They didn't ask to be born. They didn't ask to be brought into this world. And however they end up, whoever they become, is your fault, good or bad. You either got it right or you didn't, and your child is a result of that. That's why you don't get to decide to not be in your child's life anymore, because you created that person, for better or for worse. Now, if your child grows up and they realize that your personality doesn't mesh with theirs and you're toxic to their life because of how you raised them, they can decide that they don't want to be a part of your life. Because again, they didn't ask to be brought into this world. They didn't ask to be a part of your family. You brought them into it. And if they grow up and decide by recognizing the behavior around them that they don't want you in their life, that's their decision. And it's a decision that they get to make and that you don't get to decide is the wrong one. Parenting and raising children is serious. Everyone wants to have a baby because they're cute and they bring love and joy to the family. But understand that that little baby grows up into a person and you are responsible for who that person becomes. So pay attention to how you're raising them and be intentional in your parenting.
What's an unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
So before our daughter was born, we decided that we weren't going to lie to her about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and Easter Bunny because of the psychological trauma that occurs with children when they find out that their parents have been lying to them for years and years and years. There's a lot of research on it. So instead, we did something different. We focused on the traditions of the holidays and made sure she understood the stories and the history. And when she was of a proper age, 2 or 3, I believe, we asked her if she wanted to pretend that these things were real. And she did that with the Tooth Fairy and she did that with Santa Claus, not with any of the others. So she still got to have the fantasy and enjoy the fun without all of the trauma of lying to her for years.
Your children do not need to thank you for clothing and feeding them. When your child is stating that you've done something that's hurt them, you don't get to say, but I've clothed and fed you. Oh, blessed be who you are for not letting your child run around naked, afraid, and starving. Grow up. You're going in a nursing home, and you're gonna get a nurse that doesn't like you, and she's gonna give you dirt, disgusting porridge. Porridge that Goldilocks wouldn't even steal from you, and she was robbing bears.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
Oh, this one's easy. I'm not raising children. I'm raising adults. So yes, I expect them all to learn how to do laundry, cook, clean, and generally take care of themselves, starting at an early age. Yes, that means my 6-year-old participates in doing his own laundry. Now, he doesn't do it from start to finish, but he helps with the whole process and folds his own clothes. My 16-year-old is completely self-sufficient. So is my 14-year-old. And my other kids are in various stages of this independence. I'm not going to send people out into the world that I made and they're not able to take care of themselves. My kids will not be society's burden. Teach your kids how to do shit.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
What I'm about to say kind of piggybacks off my last video. Go watch that one if you haven't. But I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one. I don't know what parent needs to hear this, but there is no cutoff age for supporting your kids financially. Allow me to explain. Now, by no means am I saying that once your child has their own full-time job with their own steady source of income, that you should still be financially supporting them. But even that has exceptions if we're being honest. But you're definitely still obligated to support them financially well after they turn 18. Your first instinct should not be to throw caution to the wind and let them figure it out because they're grown now. That's irresponsible on your part. And if your child doesn't want help from you after they turn 18, ask yourself why that is. And some of y'all need to stop acting like the fucking Godfather when you do something for your kids like they owe you something in return. Just do better.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
Ooh, I love this one. I love this one. I also have brought this one up, and it does piss a lot of people off, but it's okay. My boys have had all the talks. They've had the rape talk, they've had the domestic abuse talk, they've had the talk to respect women, to treat women with respect, and to be open about your feelings. But they've also had the talk that just because they are a boy does not mean your daughter gets to walk all over them. Your daughter hits them once, you have the right, you can contain them with that one hit. They hit you twice, you still can contain them with the second hit. But your daughter hits my child 3 times and we have a problem. And I hope that you've taught your daughter respect, because after that 3rd hit, my child has the right to rock your daughter's shit.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
Another one. Your children do not have to be grateful to you for providing the bare necessities that they need to survive. You can teach them to be thankful for the things that they have, because there are people in circumstances who may not have these things. But some of you view your relationships with your children as transactional, and you weaponize these things that you provide to your children. I put a roof over your head. I put clothes on your back. I put food in your mouth. And when you consistently bring these things up to your child, you're sending the message that they should be grateful to you, that you're doing them a favor, that you deserve recognition and accolades for this thing that you're doing. Now, if I went to my job and I swept the floor and I served up the orders and I organized everything, and I went up to my manager and I said, hey, I swept the floor and I did what I was supposed to do, your manager will laugh in your face and say, yeah, that was on the job description. A lot of these parents will weaponize these things that they're providing to their children when you signed up to provide those things when you decided to have a child.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
There is a substantial chance that if you have a child, they will one day be gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, pan, non-binary, etc. So if you're the type of person who might one day ostracize, mistreat, or disown them for that, then you should probably rethink having a child.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
Children are individuals. They're not property. Your child is not a mini-me. They're their own person. You have to understand that they're their own person and you have to treat them as such. Too many parents are restricting their kids because they don't want their children to go outside of the box that they put them in, and you cannot do that. I also notice a lot of parents don't let their kids do things simply because the parents don't like it. It's not that it's bad. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. The parents just don't like it. For starters, home needs to be a safe place for your child. And if your home is not a safe place for your child will struggle. Too many parents tell their kids you can be who you want once you're 18 and not under my roof, but your home should be that place where your child can find themselves because that's where they're supposed to be the safest. But a lot of you parents aren't safe for your kids, and neither are the homes you provide them with. A lot of y'all parents don't allow your kids to be the people that they should be. Rather, you try to get them to be the person that you want them to be, and you cannot do that.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad? I'll go first.
I actually got into a fight with like a mother of 9 about this on TikTok like last January. I'm gonna bring it up again. Forcing your kids to finish everything on their plate before they get up from the dinner table or eat foods they don't like before they can get up from the dinner table is a form of trauma. And it actually leads to binge eating disorders because you're teaching young, impressionable kids that don't know any better to ignore their hunger cues. And that idea is going to follow them into adulthood and lead to a poor relationship with food for the rest of their life and likely a binge eating disorder. Also, punishing them if they don't finish their food, like taking away TV or not giving them dessert, is a form of trauma also. It's such an outdated parenting method, and if you refuse to listen to anybody telling you to stop traumatizing your kids, you're a bad parent. There's so many studies on this, it takes one Google search.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad? I'll go first.
Your older children are not your designated babysitters, and it's not their responsibility to watch your kids. I mean, it's amazing if they want to do it, but you can't get mad at a teenager for not wanting to watch their fucking 3-year-old sibling when they have an actual life that they want to go do. I understand if they're living in your house rent-free, that's the bare minimum that they could do for you. But at the end of the day, they didn't have a kid, they didn't choose to have a kid, and it's not their responsibility to look after them.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
So as a former high school teacher, I can certainly say that parents who shelter their kids too much always run into problems, especially when those kids rebel. But what's honestly an even bigger problem is when you shelter them and it works. So I taught kids who were raised in a super conservative environment, and I myself had many peers when I was growing up who were raised in a super conservative environment. Most of those kids, and particularly the boys who never break away from that super strict family mold, they thrive substantially less in life than people who were raised by strict parents and rebelled, or people who were not raised by strict parents, in my experience. Family structures play a vital role for all kids in all societies. But something that's really important, particularly in Western societies, is individuation and the ability to conceive of a world and a life and experiences that are outside of strictly the family bubble. Sheltered kids who never develop a strong sense of self will turn into codependent and oftentimes, unfortunately, crippled adults.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad? I'll go first.
I know this one's gonna make y'all mad. All right, number 1, feeding, clothing, and putting a roof over your child's head does not make you a good parent. Doing the bare minimum that is legally required of you because you decided to bring a person into the world does not earn you respect. Number 2, your child should not be afraid to come to you for anything ever. You are your child's support system, and if they have to mentally prepare themselves to tell you something or to ask you for something, you're doing it wrong. Number 3, if you discipline your child by hitting them and then one day they get fed up and decide to beat the shit out of you, that's on you. You really, truly, 110% did that shit to yourself and deserve it. You don't get to display your anger or disappointment by putting your hands on your child and expect them to not display the same behavior that you taught them.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad? I'll go first.
Your finances are none of your child's business. I'm going to say that to you one more time. Your finances and any of your financial problems are none of your children's business, period. They should not know how much you make. They should not know what your bills are. If you are struggling and utilities get cut off, they should not know it's because you didn't have the money. I mean, I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone. So I was raised in South Florida. My mother was a nurse. My father was a line cook. So definitely, I'm not going to say we were like super struggling, but there was financial struggles there. I found out later in my adult life. A couple of times utilities got cut off. And when we asked questions, hey mom, why did the electricity get cut off? Hey mom, why did the cable get cut off? We were told that it was a discrepancy on the company's part. They had already communicated with them and they'll be cut on whenever they're going to get cut on. So that way we didn't go to school and feel like we were the poor kids in class, because that causes major psychological issues. And I know this because I had friends that lived that situation. I know this because I have friends that I've had to correct because they do that now. If you're stressing about money and your kid asks for something and you bark at them, that's why we don't have nothing, because you're always wanting something. I'm always having to spend money on you. That is child abuse, is what that is. You are weaponizing your financial struggle against your children, and that's child abuse. Period, end of story. You're mad at me if you want to. Your financial struggle is not your child's concern, nor is it their burden to hold.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad? I'll go first.
Apparently, you guys just want this to be a whole series. So here's the next one. Your lack of planning is not my emergency. Here's an example. A few weeks ago, my daughter wanted to go to a baseball game. Like, sure, fine, give me the details. Who, what, when, where, how. All of the things, okay? The day of, I ask her, what's the plan today? She tells me, I'm not really sure it's going to happen. So-and-so has baseball. I don't know what time they're going to be done. That was the end of the conversation. I made other plans. Then later in the afternoon, she says, what time are you dropping me off at the baseball game? Imagine my confusion. I'm like, I'm not taking you to the baseball game. She's like, well, we talked about this. Yeah, and when we talked about it, you said you didn't know if it was going to happen, so I made other plans. She could have found another ride, but ultimately she decided not to go. Doing this teaches my children responsibility and communication skills.
What's the unpopular opinion that you have about parenting that you know is going to make a lot of parents mad?
This is especially going to piss off Latino parents, but just simply paying bills and being a provider for your children financially is not the same as being a good parent. You actually have to be emotionally present and available for your children, because when they grow up, they will resent you if you were never there when they were younger.